bloodiest war on American soil. States versus states. Brothers versus brothers. Join hosts Bang and Dang as they take you battle by battle through the most divisive time in American history. Welcome to Battles of the American Civil War.
Welcome back to Battles of the American Civil War, which hosts Bang and Dang, and today we have the northernmost, well, I don't call it a battle, but it is a land action of the American Civil War in Vermont. We talked a little bit about this last week. A little raid conducted by some Confederates in Vermont to rob some banks to get some moolah. And then for the next two episodes, we got nothing but Price's raid into Missouri. Some more battles, which we got 3 today that are directly tied to each other, and then we'll cover another one next week, which is the longer of the 4 that are actually directly tied to each other. Same thing going on, different areas at the same time. But we got the battle of, well, the land action of St. Alban's raid, Little Blue River. We got Byram's Ford and the Battle of Independence, Missouri. Ooh. Same thing with Jupiter Early. Pretty much after this raid, Old Price is done for. And
yep.
This is the Confederates' last chance. They had to go into Missouri to try to divert some troops away from the Eastern Theater, and it didn't work. So we're just hanging on by threads over there for the Confederates. Before we get into it, go check out our YouTube channel at Bang Dang Network. Link will be in the description. You get this podcast plus our true crime-ish podcast Outlaws and Gunslingers. We cover the Mafia. We cover Hells Angels, serial killers, Wild West, Prohibition-era gangsters, Public Enemy #1s, you name it, we got it over there. As well, if you're interested in darts, we got another YouTube channel where we play darts. That'll be in the description. You're listening on Spotify, Apple. Give us a review, share us with your friends, and answer that Spotify question. Coming up first, St. Alban's Raid, which took place October 19th, 1864. Like I said, northernmost land action.
They had to go to Canada to do it.
They had to go to Canada. It was a raid conducted out of the province of Canada by 21 Confederate soldiers who had recently failed in engagements with the Union Army and evaded subsequent capture in the United States.
Wait, 1864 was Canada?
No, it was still Britain.
Right.
Still part of the Britain, North American territories or some shit.
So like Nova Scotia and all that is the province of Canada?
Yeah. The whole thing is Canada. They don't have...
Well, Canada only goes to like Michigan now.
They don't have like
the rest of it is different.
They didn't have separate provinces. It was from 1841 to 1867.
Wow. Where's it at?
It was just pretty much the eastern part.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much all Canada.
It was Kingston. Oh, there was capitals.
Upper Canada, Lower Canada, and Canada.
Today it was a part of Ontario and Quebec.
Oh, yeah, just right. Yeah.
Yeah. So they're in the province of Canada. In this incident, Kentuckian Bennett Young led the Confederate forces. Young had been captured after the Battle of Salineville in Ohio that ended Morgan's raid, which we had in 1863. He managed to escape to Canada, which was not then a unified nation. After meeting with Confederate agents there, he returned to the Confederacy, where he proposed raids on the Union from the Canada-U.S. border to build a Confederate treasury and force the Union Army to divert troops from the South. Come on, guys. It's not going to happen.
Wow. Yeah. Young, he was commissioned as a lieutenant, returned to Canada, where he recruited other escaped Confederates for a raid on St. Albans, Vermont, a quiet city just 15 miles from the Canada-United States border. First 2 raiders arrived in Phillipsburg, Canada East, on the morning of 11th October 1864, where they stayed at the Lafayette Hotel. More people reached the hotel throughout the day. The city served as an ideal starting point because it was about 1 mile of the Canada-United States border, as we said 3 times already.
Young was planning for a series of raids beginning with St. Albans, which was chosen first because it was close to the border and well connected through roads, railways, and waterways.
Fantastic.
It also had 3 banks in close proximity and was a prosperous market town. Young was the first of the raiders to arrive in St. Albans on October 12th. And upon arrival, he began to inspect the city, particularly the banks.
Oh, you like those the little banks. 22 young raiders planned to rob 3 banks, First National, St. Albans, and Franklin County banks, and then set fire to the town using Greek fire. I don't know what that is.
It's like it was in like some sort of grenade type deal.
They reached the town in pairs after Young, posing as a part of a hunting and fishing club. Young was forced to postpone the raid, initially set for October 18th, because the town would have been too busy. Instead, he was like, how about the next day, October 19th? It was a Wednesday, as it would be the dullest day of the week. Hump day, baby.
The engagement began on Wednesday afternoon, like we said, as Young set off a gun. Most townspeople believed it was a joke or a prank, but one of the raiders soon announced, "We are Confederate soldiers and you are my prisoners."
Oh.
They robbed St. Alban's Bank, which was the first of the three. They took cash from several people who came in to pay deposits as well as cash in the bank, but left uncut banknotes and coins behind.
Okay.
Prisoners were forced to swear allegiance to the Confederate States of America before being locked in the bank. After about 12 minutes, the robbers had moved on.
These people are like, I pledge to Jefferson C. Davis. They're like, no, I don't. I had my fingers crossed. I wonder why they, just for like humiliation, probably.
Probably. Making them do it.
9 raiders delegated to take the town as the robberies were ongoing, moving inhabitants onto the village green. Soon, resistance emerged in the form of Captain George Conger, a member of the 1st Vermont Infantry Regiment. He was on leave. He began to alerting the rest of the town and raised a group to fight back. In the face of resistance, Young and his group retreated, of course, as that's what the Confederates do, attempting to fire the town as they went. Elinus J. Morrison was shot, dying 2 days later from his wounds, while Collins H. Huntington was wounded. They were both civilians.
A raider, Charles Higbee, was wounded by gunfire as armed citizenry arrived on the scene but escaped with the rest of the Confederates. They reached Canada about 9 p.m. after crossing the Missisquoi River. While they planned to return to Montreal, the Canadian police captured or otherwise held 13 of the men in captivity.
Oh, shit.
Young soon resolved to give himself up.
Damn.
He took board in a house near Phillipsburg. The home's owner alerted Conger, who had pursued the raiders into Canada. Conger's group took Young prisoner.
Oh, damn. That was a mistake.
Right.
Holy shit. Well, he again attempted to escape, but recaptured quickly by the mob. Not that mob. They began attacking him at this point, though. They were like, you know what? The fight was broken up by a British officer who saw that Conger's entourage returned to Vermont, and that Young and 7 other captured raiders were soon brought to St. Jean sur Richelieu, where they were treated as heroes. Oh. The raiders escaped to Canada again, despite a delayed pursuit. In response to the United States' demands, the Canadian authorities arrested the raiders, recovering $88,000, equivalent to $1.7 million in 2023. Wow. However, a Canadian court ruled that because they were soldiers under military orders, officially neutral Canada could not even extradite them.
We can't do nothing about it.
Like, I mean, you guys are at war, bud. Canada freed the raiders, but returned to St. Albans the money they have found.
I guess. The release of the raiders angered American opinion, as U.S. Secretary of State William Seward informed his counterparts in London. He says, it is impossible to consider those proceedings as either legal, just, or friendly towards the United States.
And what can you do?
In Europe, news of the raid and subsequent speculation of war between Britain and the U.S. increased the price of Confederate gold bonds.
Oh.
As an unintended consequence, the raid served to turn many Canadians against the Confederacy, since they felt that Canada was being drawn into the conflict without its consent.
Oh.
The Confederate agents in Canada realized that, and so no further raids were made. Like, we don't have support here no more.
Right. Like, damn.
None of the 3 banks still stand as of 2020. Other sites surviving, though, are Taylor Park and the American House, where some of the raiders stayed at.
Fantastic.
Good for them.
Moving on. Battle of Little Blue River. October 21st.
Back to Mizzou.
Right. Fought on October 21st, 1864. As we know, as part of Price's raid, Major General Sterling Price, Confederate Army, he led an army into Missouri in September of 1864. He had hopes of challenging Union control of the state. He wanted that state back. When the campaign began, Price's force was composed of about 13,000 cavalrymen. Well, dang, that's nice. But several thousand of these men were poorly armed, and all 14 of the Army's cannons were light caliber for artillery of the war.
Well, countering Price was the Union Department of Missouri under the command of Major General William Rosecrans, who had fewer than 10,000 men.
Wow.
These soldiers, many of whom were militiamen, were dispersed throughout the state. The Department of Missouri was composed of a series of districts and sub-districts charged with guarding specific local areas. While some of the militia organizations were well trained, others were poorly armed and trained. While some had fought against guerrillas, experience in more traditional warfare was lacking.
Yeah. Okay, here. So we got
Two nobodies.
two lackluster armies going at it. Late September, the old Rebs encountered a small Union force holding Fort Davidson near the town of Pilot Knob. Attacks against the post in the Battle of Pilot Knob on the 27th September had failed, but the old Bluecoats garrison abandoned the fort that very night.
They sure did.
Price had suffered hundreds of casualties in this battle and decided to change his objective from St. Louis to Jefferson City. Price's army was accompanied by a sizable wagon train, which significantly slowed its movement. Right.
The slow progress of the Confederates enabled Union forces to reinforce Jefferson City, whose garrison was increased from 1,000 men to 7,000 men between the 1st and 6th of October. In turn, Price determined that Jefferson City was too strong to attack and began moving westwards along the course of the Missouri River. The Confederates gathered recruits and supplies during the movement. A side raid against the town of Glasgow on October 15th was successful, as was another raid against Sedalia.
Oh.
We had all of those battles.
We did. Meanwhile, Bluecoats, commanded by Major General Samuel Curtis, were drawn from their role in suppressing the Cheyenne. The Kansas State Militia was mobilized. Major General James G. Blunt,
You're beautiful.
he was also transferred from the Cheyenne conflict and began gathering a combination of Union troops and state militiamen at Paola, Kansas, near the Missouri-Kansas state border. George W. Deitzler, a major general in the Kansas State Militia, was appointed its general-in-chief, although troops were under Curtis's authority. So what's the sense?
Right. The Kansas State Militia used a brigade organization, but little detail about the exact breakdown is provided in the official records of the War of the Rebellion. While some of the militia were technically commanded by Blunt, the militia officers serving under Blunt still considered themselves to be part of the militia and attempted to adhere to their former command structure.
Oh, wow.
The total strength of the mobilized militia amounted to about 15,000.
Okay.
Deitzler's militia and Blunt's division were grouped under Curtis's command, which was now known as the Army of the Border.
It looks like we got a equal army going against each other now.
Yep.
This army was split into two wings, one commanded by Deitzler and composed of the militia retained under his command, and the other being Blunt's force. 14th or 15th of October, Blunt moved his command to Hickman Mills.
Hickman Mills!
Which is in Mizzou, where he formed it into a 3-brigade division. One of the brigades was composed of Kansas militia, led by Colonel Charles W. Blair. 2 brigades composed of Union Army troops, commanded by Colonel Charles R. Jennison, they call him Doc, and some guy named Thomas Moonlight. Blair's command was hampered by his militia units still viewing militia officer William Fishback as their proper commander. Ooh,
Idiots.
Yeah.
Well, Jennison's brigade contained 1 cavalry regiment and part of another. Moonlight's was composed of 1 cavalry regiment and parts of 2 others, and Blair's contained 1 Union cavalry regiment and 3 militia units. Each brigade was assigned an artillery battery. Blair's brigade was given an extra artillery section as well. This allotment resulted in Jennison's brigade having 5 cannons, Moonlight's 4, Blair's 8.
Fantastic. A lot of cannons. And they're probably a lot better than what the old Rebs had. Price, he halted at Marshall on the 15th of October, east of Blunt's column. The very next day, Curtis moved most of the Kansas militiamen not assigned to Blunt. They said, we're going to Kansas City. But it was prohibited by Thomas Kearny, the governor of Kansas, from taking them east of the Big Blue River. You can go there, but you can't go past the Big Blue River. Curtis had previously promised Kearny that the militia would only travel as far as was necessary to protect Kansas. On the 17th of October, Blunt detached his militia brigade to Kansas City and then sent his other 2 brigades to Holden.
October 18th, Blunt's advance guard, commanded by Moonlight, occupied the town of Lexington, hoping to cooperate with a force commanded by Brigadier General John Sanborn to catch up and trap Prince. However, Sanborn's force was too far south of Lexington to move in concert with Blunt, but additionally, Blunt learned that Price was only 20 miles away at Waverly. He also received word from Curtis that the political authorities in Kansas would not allow the latter to send more militiamen to Blunt. Why?
Right. Well, Blunt, he then made the decision to reinforce his outer positions, resist the anticipated Confederate advance. A rebel Brigadier General Joseph Shelby's division attacked the old Blue Coats line at Lexington on the 19th of October, beginning the Second Battle of Lexington. But Blunt's troops held. The Union troops retreated once Price deployed men of Fagin's and Marmaduke's division into the fray.
After that Battle of Lexington, Blunt's forces fell back to the west, Moonlight's brigade serving as the rear guard. Early on the morning of October 20th, Blunt decided to halt and defend a position east of the Little Blue River. Blunt requested reinforcements from Curtis, but the restrictions on the movement of the Kansas militia prevented Blunt from being reinforced at the Little Blue River.
Right.
Curtis therefore ordered Blunt to leave a holding force at the Little Blue River and fall back to the Big Blue River.
Oh, nice.
Blunt argued for a stand at the river of Little Blue, but complied with his orders, falling back to Independence that evening.
Oh, that's such bullshit. Frickin' politics. 11th Kansas Cavalry Regiment, supported by 4 cannons, left behind to serve as a rear guard under Moonlight's command. The strength of this force amounted to either 400 to 600 men.
All right.
2 companies of 11th Kansas Cavalry and the cannons, they were placed at a bridge over the river. They had instructions to burn it when the old Rebs arrived, while single companies guarded fords, one within either a mile or 2 miles north of the bridge, and the other 4 miles to the south of the bridge.
The remainder of the 11th was held as a reserve.
Oh.
Despite these precautions, other fords closer to the bridge were left unguarded, and the river was shallow enough to be crossed at many points.
Fantastic.
The defenders simply were not familiar with the terrain, while some of the Missouri Confederates indeed were.
Wow.
Union prisoners informed Price that a stand would be made at the Little Blue.
Oh.
The Confederates struck at about 7 a.m. on the morning of October 21st, the advance being led by Company D of the 5th Missouri Cavalry Regiment.
Uh-oh, here we go. The old Rebs company lost over a third of its strength in a sharp fight with Union skirmishers, who were eventually driven across the bridge. After the old rebels' pressure grew strong enough that the defenders at the bridge determined that they would not be able to hold out, they set fire to that damn bridge. Meanwhile, Clark's Confederate brigade arrived. Marmaduke sent the 4th Missouri Cavalry Regiment to find a ford south of the bridge, while the 10th Missouri Cavalry they found a crossing about halfway between the bridge and the Union Company, stationed north of it. Man, that worked out.
Well, that northward Union Company was outflanked and retreated, later rejoining other parts of their regiment.
Wow.
Clark, in turn, ordered more of his brigade to cross behind the 10th Missouri Cavalry. Ford soon became congested, slowing Confederate movements. The Union troops holding the burning bridge also retreated, although the Confederates were able to put out the flames, rendering it still usable.
Fantastic. Look at that.
The 11th Kansas Cavalry, with the exception of the isolated company to the south, retreated to the hilltop line marked by a stone wall.
Oh. Moonlights. He had 4 cannons. They were deployed here as well. 10th Missouri Cavalry pursued them uphill and attacked, but it was repulsed and disarray by the Kansans and the fire from the repeating rifles. Them damn repeating rifles, tell you what. Confederate Colonel Colton Green, he was able to get his 3rd Missouri Cavalry Regiment across the ford, although the men of the 10th Missouri had already routed. 3 cannons from the Harris, Missouri battery also crossed and moved into a position to support Green. Not report, support.
The whole of the 11th Kansas Cavalry Regiment counterattacked, while the 3rd Missouri Cavalry Regiment was only about 150 men strong. Once the combat reached close quarters, the Confederate artillery was no longer effective, as the risk of accidental friendly fire was too great.
Yep.
Instead, the cannoneers fired blanks in an attempt to mislead the Union troops into thinking they were under heavy artillery fire.
Oh, okay.
The Kansans retreated, and Greene believed that the blank cartridge ruse had been effective.
Oh.
The two sides engaged in a series of counterattacks, neither gaining a significant advantage.
Oh. Meanwhile, Blunt had been able to get permission from Curtis to fight at the Little Blue River. He then began a return from Independence to the river, bringing his non-militia units and 900 men, 6 cannons under the command of Colonel James Ford. Ford's command consisted of McLean's Colorado Battery, part of the 16th Kansas Cavalry Regiment, and the 2nd Colorado Cavalry Regiment, which were transferred from Curtis's command to Blunt's, becoming a 4th Brigade for the latter. The 2nd Colorado Cavalry had previously been sent by Rosecrans to Curtis, and McLean's battery had been stationed at Paola until October.
2 regiments from Jennison's brigade also accompanied Blunt. Back at the Little Blue, Clark's brigade had finally gotten across the river. Around 11 a.m., Moonlight observed some of the Shelby's men approaching in support of Clark's brigade. Despite being farther from the battlefield than Fagan's division, Shelby's division was committed to the fighting, as it was considered more reliable. Blunt's command also arrived on the field about 11 a.m. By then, Moonlight's force had fallen back to about 2 miles from the river.
Okay.
Between the commands of Moonlight and Blunt, there were about 2,600 Union men on the field with support of 15 cannons.
Oh, all right. Look at that. 2 regiments from Jennison's brigade supported the Union right, while Ford's men moved to the left. Elements of both Marmaduke's and Shelby's divisions, totaling about 5,500 men, they were present. While numerically inferior, the old Blue Coats had superior firepower, which they always had. The Union line held on the left by the 15th Kansas Cavalry, which was supported by the 5 cannons. The Union line stretched to the north, with the 3rd Wisconsin Cavalry Regiment next to the 15th Kansas Cavalry, followed by the 2nd Colorado Cavalry, McLean's Battery, 16th Kansas Cavalry, and 11th Kansas Cavalry. 4 cannons supported the 11th Kansas Cavalry. Look at that.
All right. About 1/4 of the Union soldiers were sent to the rear to hold the men's horses. The men from both sides were deployed dismounted. The increased Union numbers began to put substantial pressure on Greene's regiment. Woods, Missouri Cavalry Battalion arrived to reinforce Greene and aligned in an orchard. After some fighting and a Union counterattack, the Confederates began to run low on ammo and started a retreat.
Oh, shit.
Which was accompanied by Harris's battery.
Run low on ammo. That's crazy. Just as the Rebs line was beginning to collapse, the 7th Missouri Cavalry and Davies' Missouri Cavalry of Clark's brigade arrived to shore up the line. Showed up. Additionally, Thompson's brigade of Shelby's division, they crossed over and deployed to the left of Clark's brigade. After Thompson's men made it across the river, Shelby also fed Jackman's brigade into the fight.
All right.
Shelby then ordered an assault against the old Bluecoats. Most of Jackman's brigade was inexperienced and made little progress. But Nichols's Missouri Cavalry, which was still mounted, advanced against the Union left flank, ready to roll.
Well, meanwhile, Curtis arrives on the battlefield at about 1300, which is about 1 p.m., accompanied by 2 more cannons. There were now about 2,800 Union troops on the field. Curtis noticed Nichols's unit incursion towards the Union flank and sent McLean's battery and 2 other cannons to counter the threat, as these cannons were taken from other parts of the Union lines that weakened the Union center.
Okay.
Shelby took advantage of the weakened Union center by pressing the attack harder.
Oh, here we go. Thompson's men, they began pushing forward, complicating matters for the Union soldiers. Was Curtis's decision to send the wagons containing more ammo back to Independence. I'm like, can you believe that shit? With ammunition running low, Nichols's men threatening one flank, Thompson's pressing the Union center. The Union troops began conducting a fighting withdrawal. Blunt placed Ford in charge of the rear guard, although in practice, Moonlight shared command responsibility with Ford, whose men conducted a rear guard maneuver in which the men deployed in 2 ranks. You can't have multiple people running a frickin' regiment.
Well, the front rank resisted the Confederate pursuit until falling back behind the second rank, after which the process was repeated. Yeah. During the retreat, McLean's battery was caught in an exposed position, but was rescued by a counterattack made by elements of the 11th Kansas Cavalry.
Nice.
Later, these elements of that same 11th Kansas Cavalry were also stuck in an exposed position and had to be rescued by a charge from the 2nd Colorado Cavalry.
Oh, shit.
The 11th and 16th Kansas Cavalry and McLean's battery made a stand on a ridge 2 miles east of Independence, the 16th even making a brief counterattack.
Oh, look at that shit.
But this position had become indefensible by around 1500 and was abandoned.
Oh, I bet it was. Holy shit. Well, the Rebs had become disorganized at this time, and Blunt used a lull in the fighting to begin to form a line at Independence. By 1600, which is 4 o'clock, large-scale fighting had ended. The retreat to Independence had been over 7 miles. Later that afternoon, Blunt ordered a retreat to the Big Blue River, which was lightly pursued by the Rebs. Some skirmishing occurred within Independence itself during the retreat. A detail of Union soldiers destroyed some army supplies in town, while civilians within the town took pot shots at the retreating Union troopers. Oh, wow.
It is not known if the civilian gunmen were pro-Confederates or were under the mistaken belief that the Union soldiers were guerrillas in captured uniforms, or if they were attempting to hamper the destruction of military supplies, hoping to take them themselves. By nightfall, Curtis's men were on the west side of the Big Blue, and Price's army was in the Independence area.
Official casualty numbers are only known for a few units on each side. The 11th and 15th Kansas Cavalries and the 2nd Colorado Cavalry combined had 20 men murdered. On the Confederate side, the 3rd Missouri Cavalry Regiment suffered 31 killed and wounded, while a total of 3 men were killed between Davies's battalion and the 10th Missouri Cavalry Regiment. Among the Union dead was Major Nelson Smith of the 2nd Colorado Cavalry, while Confederate guerrilla leader George Todd was also killed.
George Todd, huh?
He was just a guerrilla leader.
But he did some major shit in Kansas.
He did.
Todd had led a group of guerrillas during the battle. He was shot in the throat during the final stages of the action.
Oh, shit.
Confederate surgeon William McFeeters reported that 10 wounded Union soldiers were left in Independence, and that civilians reported about 100 more had been taken with the Union troops during the retreat.
Oh, no shit.
McFeeters also noted seeing the dead bodies of Union soldiers strewn along the road from the river to Independence.
Holy shit.
Historian Mark Louse estimates that the Union may have lost about 300 men.
Oh, damn.
And the Confederates even more.
Oh, wow.
Shelby later described the fight as the beginning of significant difficulties for his division during the campaign.
Okay. Well, there was a study that was published by the American Battlefield Protection Program in 2011. It determined that the Little Blue River battlefield was fragmented, but that there was still potential for future preservation. The study also noted that the site was threatened by highway construction. The battlefield is not listed on the National Register of Historic Places, but the American Battlefield Protection Program found that 2,493 acres are potentially eligible for this listing. At the site, 6.5 acres are currently under some form of permanent protection. There is public interpretation at the site, but no visitors center. Oh, can't have it. Well, just put like a little visitor center there. A driving tour with markers has been established for the battlefields of Little Blue and Second Independence together. The site is part of the Freedom's Frontier National Heritage Area, and the Civil War Roundtable of Western Missouri acts as a Battlefield Friends group.
Good for them, huh? This next one we're going to get, it's Byram's Ford, which is October 22nd and the 23rd. And then in the middle of this, we're going to do the Battle of Independence, which kind of takes place, obviously, at the same time. And it's the same kind of battle, but different place. So the Battle of Byram's Ford, also known as the Battle of Big Blue River and the Battle of the Blue, was fought October 22nd to 23rd. Around 8 a.m., fighting began when Shelby drove Union skirmishers across the Big Blue. About an hour later, Jackman's brigade, about 1,500 men, feinted against the north portion of the Union line, although Curtis did not fall for the ruse, as he believed the fighting was too dilatory to represent a primary attack. When Union officers on the north part of the line reported seeing minimal Confederate activity on the road to Kansas City, Curtis became more convinced that the northern Confederate threat was not a primary attack, and concerned about a potential flanking attack to the south.
Yeah, you got to be concerned about that flanking attack. Well, he gave Blunt, along with Melvin S. Grant, who commanded 2 Kansas State militia regiments positioned to the south near Hickman Mills, he gave them orders to watch for Confederate movements and to send reports back every half hour. Damn. By the time the guy gets back,
You gotta keep on going.
At 11 a.m., men of the 2nd Colorado Cavalry reported that rebels' forces were moving for the southern fords, and the dust clouds kicked up by the moving troops were sighted by the occupants of a Union signal tower further north. Like, all right, now we know kind of where they're going.
Also at 11, Shelby decided to attempt to force a crossing of the Big Blue at Byram's Ford, which was in the southern portion of the Union line. Byram's Ford had been occupied by Jennison's brigade since around 9 a.m., defensive works being prepared by one of Grant's militia regiments the night before. Felled trees and other obstructions blocked the ford, but only the brush on the Union side of the river had been cleared, meaning that the Confederates had cover, but not that element of Jennison's brigade, which was in the immediate vicinity of the ford.
Okay.
Jennison's approximately 1,200 men were largely positioned on high ground to the west of the ford, with only a strong skirmish line and 5 mountain howitzers defending the ford itself.
Okay, that'll work. First sizable Confederate force to reach Byram's Ford, Thompson's brigade, he got there, which numbered about 1,445 men. Thompson's attack, not successful, as we all know, but his men kept pressure on Jennison's position, resulting in the 16th Kansas Cavalry and possibly a Missouri militia unit being sent to reinforce Jennison.
Possibly.
The fighting between Thompson and Jennison continued for 3 hours, during which time Jackman, he sent 2 units from his brigade, which was Nichols's Missouri Cavalry and Schnabel's Missouri Cavalry Battalion. He said that. Go reinforce Thompson, will you, buds?
Around 1400, Thompson and Shelby decided to seek alternate fords to outflank Jennison's stubborn defense. Colonel B. Frank Gordon and his 5th Missouri Cavalry Regiment were sent to the south with orders to cross the river, turn north, and cut Jennison off from any reinforcements. Gordon's men found a ford and crossed without incident. Slayback's Missouri Cavalry Battalion was sent north, where it quickly found Hinkle's Ford, which is a crossing used by local farmers that had left it unguarded. The Union did. Well, what are these guys doing? What was the point of guarding the bridge if you're going to leave all these fords unguarded?
Right. The crossings both above and below Byram's Ford led to a general breakthrough. Participants in the battle provided time ranging from 1,400 to 1,500 for when the Confederates crossed the river. The modern historian, Mark A. Louse, believes that the variation in these estimates is due to the breakthrough occurring in stages. Outflanked, Jennison was forced to fall back, which opened the crossing at Byram's Ford. The Union soldiers had abandoned several axes at the ford, which allowed the old Rebs to clear the obstructions within an hour. Damn.
Jennison's brigade attempted to retreat to the northwest in the direction of Westport, but were prevented from moving north by the Confederates who had crossed at Hinkle's Ford.
Uh-oh.
The Union brigade wound up retreating 4 miles, eventually crossing the state line and entering Kansas. Blunt had ordered Moonlight's brigade to support Jennison around 1,300, but Moonlight did not receive the order. Oh, jeez.
Oh, wow.
After Moonlight learned from his scouts that Jennison had been driven back, he sent his brigade to support Jennison, but arrived at Hinkle's Ford after the Confederates had already crossed.
Wow.
He then withdrew towards Westport.
Well, that was a mess up by old Moonlight.
Right.
Well, Moonlight's brigade eventually reached the state line, where it deployed next to Jennison's brigade. Jennison, who was a senior officer, did not take the overall command of the 2-brigade force, and Thompson's Confederates pressed the leaderless Union line.
Jeez.
Holy shit. Curtis had sent his escort to reinforce Jennison at Byram's Ford, placing the escort under the command of his chief of artillery, Major Robert H. Hunt. Hunt's party found that Jennison had withdrawn and followed Moonlight's men to the state line. With the Confederates threatening the Union line, Hunt formed a strong skirmish line, counterattacked Thompson's men, and disorganized the old rebel ranks.
All right. Curtis ordered a complete withdrawal, though, and lead into the retreat of Ford's brigade and Deitzler's militia, although the 19th Kansas State Militia Infantry Regiment, which was a part of Blair's brigade, was forced to fight off a Confederate attack.
Uh-oh.
Meanwhile, Grant and his Kansas State Militia unit south of Byram's Ford had become aware that they were in danger of being cut off from the rest of the Union Army.
Uh-oh.
Grant orders units to move towards Westport independently, but the force was in a state of disorganization as well.
Man. Well, Shelby, as usual, did not know that Grant's force was disordered, and he believed that the Union units constituted a threat. So he sent Jackman's brigade to the south to cover that part of the Confederate line. Grant's withdrawing men encountered Gordon and the 5th Missouri Cavalry, who had crossed at the southern ford, and they were quickly scattered. Isolating a 24-pounder howitzer attached to the 2nd Kansas State Militia Infantry. The regiment was under the command of Colonel George W. Veal.
Well, the 21-man gun crew received support from the rest of its regiment, and the unit deployed at Thomas Mockbee's farm, as well as the gun crew. About 250 to 300 men from the 2nd Kansas State Militia Infantry Regiment were on the field. The gunners opened fire on the Confederates, who were positioned in a grove of locust trees on a nearby hill. While the first several rounds were ineffective, the Union artillerists eventually found the range, and they forced the Confederates down into a ravine.
The fighting led to 2 decisions. First, Grant elected to attempt to hold at the Mockbee farm, believing he would receive reinforcements from Hickman Mills and have ability to fight his way to Westport. Shelby began pulling troops from the pursuit of Jennison to enter the fighting at Mockbee farm. I guess that was 2, right? Oh, no. Yeah. Before the reinforcements from Shelby arrived, Gordon attacked the Union position, but repulsed. Jackman's brigade had been the first unit pulled towards the Mockbee farm, but the stout resistance led Shelby to believe he was facing Major General Alfred Pleasanton's division, which he wasn't, causing him to order. He was scared of him, huh?
Apparently.
Causing him to order all but a single regiment of Thompson's brigade to the farm as well.
A second attack by Gordon with some of Jackman's men involved was also repulsed. For the third attack, Jackman added the new recruits and unarmed men associated with his brigade to the attacking column. This time, the Confederate numerical advantage was too much for the 2nd Kansas State Militia Infantry Regiment, and the unit and cannon were overrun.
Oh, shit.
Union reinforcements arrived in the form of the 21st Kansas State Militia Infantry Regiment and part of the 15th Kansas Cavalry Regiment. But the 15th Kansas Cavalry withdrew towards the state line before the Confederates' attack reached them, leaving the militiamen on their own.
Oh, shit.
21st State Kansas Militia Infantry Regiment withdrew about 1 mile after fighting the Confederate attackers, but the unit was overrun as well.
Look at that. A little morale victory for the... a boost of morale for the old Confederates right there, huh?
This is where the Battle of Second Independence takes place.
Yeah, take a look at that. October 22nd, Price made a feigning attack against the north part of the Big Blue River line, while Shelby's division attacked in force further south, bringing on the Battle of Byram's Ford, which we just covered.
Well, we didn't cover it. We're in the middle of it.
Right. The attack forced the Union line back towards the town of Westport. Price moved much of his army across the Big Blue. Fagan's division, with 4,500 men, was left at Independence as a rear guard. Marmaduke's division, with 2,500 men, was between Fagan and Shelby. Before Pleasanton took over command from Sanborn on October 20th, his cavalrymen had made little progress.
Rosecrans and Smith had been following the cavalry with infantry, but with Pleasanton in charge, the cavalry moved much quicker and reached Lexington a day ahead of the infantry.
Nice.
Knowing that Price would eventually have to turn south to retreat or to return to Confederate territory, Rosecrans wanted Smith and Pleasanton to move south, cut off the path the Confederates would take to have to retreat.
Oh, shit.
Instead, Pleasanton had gotten far enough ahead of Rosecrans that his 7,000 cavalrymen were already almost to the Confederate line. On the morning of October 22nd, Rosecrans changed his plans to allow Pleasanton to pursue Price directly. Smith's infantry had already begun to turn south and had to countermarch north to fucking get there.
Oh, shit. Here we go. Contact between the two sides was made at 0500 at the Little Blue. At the river crossings were Confederate pickets from Slemmon's brigade. The detachment was under the command of Colonel John C. Wright. 13th Missouri Cavalry Regiment, 17th Illinois Cavalry Regiment of McNeil's brigade. They forced Wright's command back. But they were delayed in crossing because of a burned bridge. Damn burned bridges. An artillery battery was across the river by 10 a.m. McNeil's brigade spent 2 hours pushing Slayman's brigade and Huey's Arkansas battery, which was armed with Parrott rifles.
Union cavalry had gone roughly 3 miles of the roughly 7 miles to Independence by 1330. Price and Fagan were informed of this action, and Cabell's brigade was sent to support Slemons's and Wright's rear guard action. Cabell's men moved to the front, and Slemons and Wright fell to the rear and out of the action. Price's wagon train had not been able to fully cross the Big Blue, and Cabell had to hold out at Independence long enough to allow the train to cross, as Price was stuck between 2 Union forces.
Oh, my goodness. Here we go. McNeil resumed the advance around 1400, using a formation consisting of the 17th Illinois Cavalry and also the 13th Missouri Cavalry as his main line. Then he added the 5th Missouri State Militia Cavalry Regiment, acting as skirmishers. Despite support from Huey's battery, which lasted until 1500, Cabell's brigade was forced back to Independence itself, where it was joined then by Clark's and Freeman's brigades. Pleasanton, he committed Sanborn's brigade to the fighting. An attack was made, with the 2nd Arkansas Cavalry leading the way.
All right, while coordination between McNeil and Sanborn was intended, the 2nd Arkansas Cavalry on the right of the Sanborn's brigade had commenced their advance earlier than the rest of the attacking force and were halfway to Independence when the rest began advancing towards the town. After the 2nd Arkansas Cavalry entered the town, the men dismounted in preparation for hand-to-hand combat. Let's go. H2H, baby.
Yeah, the attack drove the old Rebs away to the west and southwest, but Union forces did not pursue them due to fatigue. McNeil's men began their part of the advance once Sanborn stalled, initially heading west before turning south and then back to the west. McNeil's attack was led by the 13th Missouri Cavalry, with the 17th Illinois Cavalry and the 7th Kansas Cavalry following. The old Rebs attempted to block the path of his attack by stringing a chain across the road, but this obstacle was removed by a Union civilianist.
Oh, what is the chain going to do?
A Unionist civilian.
All right. The attack of the 13th Missouri Cavalry shattered.
What the fuck's the chain going to do? Like, oh shit, guys, there's a chain. I got to turn around.
Step over it. The attack of the 13th Missouri Cavalry shattered Confederate resistance at the Temple Lot, which was a religious site related to the Latter-day Saint movement. Union troopers also charged Huey's battery and was supporting Confederate detachment. Union fire shot down all the battery's horses and routed the battery men and the supporting detachment.
Okay.
The detachment's commander, Huey's 2 cannons, which had been captured from Union forces at the Battle of Pleasant Hill, and 300 Confederates were all captured. So give him my guns back.
Damn right.
Cable was almost captured and lost his sword during his escape, though.
That sucks. He lost his damn sword. 13th Missouri Cavalry lost only 10 men during the charge. The attack was successful, but could not be followed up with troops on hand, as both McNeil's and Sanborn's brigades had become disorganized through exhaustion and confusion. Furthermore, Clark's men resisted at Independence until about 1700, when they began falling back with the knowledge that Price's supply train was crossing the Big Blue. Pleasanton responded by bringing up Brown's and Winslow's brigade. He was like, let's go, Brown and Winslow.
Well, Brown and Winslow were to move against the Confederates, while McNeil's and Sanborn's brigade remained behind in Independence to manage post-battle cleanup tasks. A local bank and hotel were taken over by McNeil and Sanborn's men for use as hospitals. 40 of Blunt's wounded men who had been abandoned at a field hospital during the Battle of Little Blue River and then captured by the Confederates were rescued.
Cool. That works out. Next day, back at Byram's Ford, Pleasanton.
Back at Byram's Ford.
Pleasanton planned an assault, which was to be led by Brown's brigade, which Pleasanton's orders stated this.
That was the end of the Independence battle, by the way.
Right. Had as yet done no fighting, which he said of Brown's brigade. This movement required Brown's men to pass through Winslow's brigade. Also, one of Brown's regiments, the 1st Missouri State Militia Cavalry Regiment, they lost contact with the rest of the brigade and could not be immediately found. Brown, he ran at least 90 minutes late, and when Pleasanton arrived, he placed Brown and Colonel James McFerrin, the commander of the 1st Missouri State Militia Cavalry, under arrest for being late and allowing units to become disorganized. Brown was later acquitted at a court-martial.
What about McFerrin?
Probably not.
Colonel John Phillips replaced Brown as brigade commander, and Winslow was given general command of the attack. While the Confederates had worked on clearing the ford the previous day, obstructions still remained, and the Confederates had strengthened the defenses. Marmaduke's men defended the ford with Freeman's brigade at the ford itself and Clark's brigade further to the west on a height known as Potato Hill. About 200 yards west of the ford was a rock ledge, with Potato Hill several hundred yards further from the river.
Oh, here we go. Skirmishers from the 3rd Missouri Cavalry and the 4th Missouri Cavalry were with Freeman's brigade, and Harris's Missouri battery and Henson's Texas battery were positioned on Potato Hill. While Winslow made his attack, Sandburg's brigade and Pleasanton's divisional artillery remained in reserve. With 3 Rodman guns.
Oh, man, unpredictable.
With 3 Rodman guns from the Battery 8th, 2nd Missouri Light Artillery Regiment, firing on the old rebel lines. Between the brigades of Phillips and Winslow, there were about 2,700 Union soldiers present, against about 2,500 Confederates. Oh, so it was about evil.
Yes, right.
It was.
At either around 8 a.m. or 9 a.m., the Union attack began. The 7th Missouri State Militia Cavalry Regiment attacked, but was quickly forced to halt. A battalion of the 4th Iowa Cavalry Regiment crossed the river at a ravine 300 yards to the north and began firing into the Confederate flank. Winslow led another charge, and the Confederates fell back. Some took up positions along the rock ledge, while most fell back even further west to the main Confederate line on the hilltop. Winslow paused for about 30 minutes to bring up more troops before making an assault against the Confederate lines. He said, "Let's go, baby."
Here we go. The path the Union soldiers would have to take to attack Potato Hill sloped upwards. How can it slope up? Isn't it
Still slope
down, I guess. Sloped upwards and was covered with tree stumps.
Depending on what way you're coming at it, it either slopes upwards or downwards, right?
Yeah, sure. Both the rock ledge and a log house on top of the hill provided cover for the old Rebs.
Good for them.
Who also placed sharpshooters in top of trees. Wanting to quickly capture the Confederate position, Winslow ordered Phillips to make a charge. The path from the ford was narrow, so Phillips only sent a single unit, the 1st Missouri State Militia Cavalry. He sent them down the road, down the road, which was in the field of fire of Henson's battery.
The 7th Missouri State Militia Cavalry and the 4th Missouri State Militia Cavalry Regiment advanced on the left side of the road in support. 1st Missouri State Militia Cavalry advanced mounted in a column of 4s, attacking twice. The unit repulsed both times. Winslow's response was to form a line to the right of the road with 4th Iowa Cavalry, 3rd Iowa Cavalry Regiment, and the 10th Missouri Cavalry Regiment. Men from the 2nd New Jersey Cavalry Regiment served as sharpshooters, strengthening the center of the line.
Okay.
Phillips' brigade was positioned on the left, which was the southern side of the road.
Oh, here we go. Almost all of the bluecoats dismounted for the attack, and many were armed with repeating rifles. They provided significant power, which provided a significant firepower advantage, obviously. The old Rebs was held by Clark's brigade with Freeman's men in reserve. At about 11 a.m., the Union cavalry attacked. As the Union troops charged towards the rock ledge, Winslow was shot in the leg.
Oh, not Eddie.
Lieutenant Colonel Frederick Benteen took over command of this very brigade. Heavy Confederate fire blunted the attack. Sandburg's brigade was brought up in support. They're like, "Come on, man. These motherfuckers are getting us."
Now, Union troops rallied and charged again, driving the Confederates back from the ledge.
Look at that shit.
In response, Marmaduke pulled his artillery back from Clark's line to Freeman. The general Union assault followed, and the crest of Potato Hill was carried.
Uh-oh.
Pleasanton brought Sandburn's brigade forward into the action while Marmaduke attempted to make a stand with Freeman's men. The stand did not last long as Marmaduke withdrew quickly, having seen Sandburn's fresh troops enter the fray.
Oh, shit.
Benteen and Phillips halted their brigades to rest and resupply while Sandburn chased the Confederates 1 mile to the Harrisonville Road. By noon, a path had been opened for Pleasanton to join forces with Curtis.
Well, it's working out for the old bluecoats over here, huh? Shelby, he had not officially heard from Marmaduke, but he was aware of sounds of fighting and had heard rumors, and he had heard rumors from stragglers. As his division was currently stalled in the Battle of Westport, Shelby...
We'll get that next week. It's a whole big old...
Right.
It's actually a Class A battle. So.
Right. Shelby sent Jackman's brigade to Fagan at the Mockbee Farm. The unit was soon redirected to Harrisonville Road, where it encountered Sandburn's brigade. Supported by 1 cannon from Collins' Missouri battery, Jackman's men repulsed an attack from Sandburn.
Uh-oh. Well, meanwhile, at Westport, do we even... Yeah, whatever. Some people might not listen to Westport, right? Well, meanwhile, at Westport, an attack by Jennison's brigade broke Thompson's brigade, and Shelby's men fled to the rear. The collapse occurred about 14 hundo. Seeing Shelby's command disintegrate, Jackman withdrew in the face of Sandburn's brigade. Sandburn pursued Jackman, who conducted a fighting withdrawal.
Oh. I think it's better to do a fighting withdrawal or just to get the hell out of there.
Depends.
Okay.
You still want to hold some land or hold them up?
All right.
Sandburn pursued Jackman, who conducted... Shelby attempted to make another stand, but was struck by the brigades of Benteen and Phillips, while Blunt's division from Curtis's force pushed southwards.
Uh-oh.
Confederate attack by Elliott's Missouri Cavalry Regiment was repulsed, and the Confederate retreat became a southbound stampede. So get the fuck out of here.
Here we go. Price's wagon train was to make its way south via the Harrisonville Road and recross the Big Blue to the south side before continuing south for 3 miles. The train then moved onto an unnamed road, which it followed southwest and across the Big Blue to the west side. After which it reached the Fort Scott Road. Road. South of Little Santa Fe. McNeil's brigade, which was supposed to intercept the wagon train, started on its movement late and halted at about 0400.
4 a.m.
That's early.
All right.
McNeil observed Confederate campfires at that very time, but thought he was both further north than he actually was, and he thought that he was possibly isolated from the Union main force and in danger.
I'm in danger. He then paused for about 90 minutes to send out scouts who reported that the Confederates were leaving their position. Continuing their movement south, the Union troops sighted the Confederate train at about 9 a.m. or 10 a.m. At 10 a.m., Price arrived on the scene and made tactical dispositions to protect the train. Tyler's brigade, which largely consisted of unarmed men, was deployed to the north of a road intersection. Cable's brigade to the east of the intersection, and McRae's brigade on Cable's right. 200 men, either the few armed men from Tyler's brigade or a mixture of men from Tyler's brigade, and Price's personal escort served as skirmishers.
Personal escorts, huh? Fantastic. Overall, about 4,000 to 5,000 Confederate soldiers guarded the train, although only about half of them were armed. The old Rebs also had artillery present from at least Huey's Arkansas battery.
All right, Huey.
McNeil, he advanced against the train at around either 1 or 2 p.m. with a battery of mountain howitzers and 3 Rodman guns from Battery L of the 2nd Missouri Light Artillery Regiment. They are firing away those guns. McNeil, he moved his brigade into the dry bed of Heart Grove Creek. 2 companies from the 17th Illinois Cavalry and the 2nd Missouri Cavalry, they advanced against the old Rebs, who had a numerical advantage. Uh-oh, here we go.
The Union 7th Kansas Cavalry Regiment was also engaged at this time. The 5th Missouri State Militia Cavalry Regiment guarded the Union left against McRae's brigade. The 5th Missouri State Militia Cavalry was forced to extend its line to meet a threat from McRae's Confederates, and with artillery fire striking his line, McNeil, who was under the impression that he was facing the entire Confederate army, withdrew.
Oh, come on, get the hell out of here.
The Union cavalrymen watched the Confederates retreat until nightfall. Price's men did not stop their retreat until 2100, which was in southern Cass County. Most of the Union forces halted for the night near Little Santa Fe, except for Jennison's brigade, which continued 4 miles further south.
They're like, we ain't done running. According to historian Kyle Sinisi, the last hurrah, Sterling Price's Missouri expedition of 1864. He said the fight at the Mockbee Farm resulted in 43 Confederate casualties and about 50 Union soldiers killed or wounded, as well as 68 prisoners.
It's not that much.
The old Rebs from Jackman's brigade executed some of the Union prisoners, although Shelby acted to stop this.
Look at the Confederates, little pussies.
I know, right? The historian Howard Monet.
Monet really pumps my nads.
Monaire. The historian Howard Monet, or Monet, places Union casualties for the Mockbee Farm fighting as over 100 murdered.
People really take exception. People really take. What's that word? Exception to the word murdered.
Yeah, they had over 100 murdered, more wounded than killed, and 102 taken prisoners. You say they're murdered? Casualty reporting for both sides for the October 23 action at Byram's Ford and Potato Hill was incomplete.
Only 3 of Marmaduke's regiments reported losses, totaling 25 men are killed or wounded. Sinisi uses this figure to estimate that Marmaduke probably lost about 50 men during that stage of fighting. Who the fuck are you, Sinisi?
I know, right?
On the Union side, the 1st Missouri State Cavalry Militia reported a total loss of 12 men, while the 4th Missouri State Militia Cavalry reported 51 men killed or wounded. Winslow estimated that 25 men from his brigade were killed or wounded, but that figure included the brigades fighting on October 22nd and in later stages of the October 23rd action.
Right, so, okay. A 1912 newspaper report stated that 300 rebels fell on Potato Hill, and the historian Mark Laus states that 120...
Let's keep going. 120, 20, 20. Can't stop. 20, 20, 20, 20, 20.
Mark Laus states that 122 Union soldiers were murdered during the October 23rd fighting for Potato Hill and the Ford.
Okay.
Monet places...
We're going to have to address this.
Right.
It's Potato Hill.
That's what I said.
Not potato.
Potato Hill.
It's fucking potato.
Potato Hill.
I literally cannot stand people that say potato.
Potato Hill. Some potatoes.
What's potato salad? No, I want some potato salad. Fuck.
Potato. Monet placed his Union losses in capturing Potato Hill at about 200. When figuring total October 23 losses, including both Byram's Ford and Westport, Laus's estimates about 475 to 650 Union casualties, and 700
Maybe
to
we should have done Westport as well with this, but that's too long.
right, and 700 to 1,000 casualties for the Confederates. Unpublished research by Bryce Suderos, and why do we even say it's unpublished? Estimated loss of...
Fuck these guys.
Right.
Anyways, jeez. Following the defeats at Byram's Ford and Westport, Price's Confederates withdrew to the south. October 25th, they suffered 3 defeats on the same day. One of the 3 was a disastrous rout at the Battle of Mine Creek in Kansas, in which Marmaduke was captured, and the Confederates lost heavily in men and cannons.
Oh, shit.
Following a further defeat, October 28th in Missouri at the Second Battle of Newtonia, Price's army retreated to the Arkansas River via Cane Hill, Arkansas. Union pursuit halted at Arkansas on November 8th, and the Confederates retreated through the Indian Territory into Texas, arriving by December. Bye-bye, Price. No longer hearing from this fucking guy.
Holy shit. This campaign had cost Price over 2/3 of his men, along with equipment and supplies. The Union war effort was only minimally affected. No further large-scale operations occurred in the Trans-Mississippi.
No, this is it.
Part of the battlefield is listed on the National Register of Historic Places as part of the Byram's Ford Historic District. The Big Blue Battlefield Park preserves 86 acres of battlefield, including traces of original earthworks.
Nice.
2011 report by the American Battlefield Protection Program noted that much of the Byram's Ford battlefield, especially the western portions, had been covered over by the expansion of Kansas City.
But it did. That same study noted that while 18.37 acres of the battlefield were on the National Register of Historic Places, a further 167.29 acres may be eligible. The site is within Freedom's Frontier National Heritage Area. The American Battlefield Trust and its partners, has contributed to the preservation of 39 acres of the battlefield. This battlefield has also been known as the Battle of Big Blue River and the Battle of the Blue. Okay.
Look at that shit.
And the Price.
Sounds like back and forth there. Price had a chance and messed up.
Yeah, but and the Price. Don't even know why they did that. Just needless casualties.
Stupidity.
Needless casualties.
Because you think Marmaduke could be like, hey, I don't think this is a good idea.
Well, he's a dog.
Damn Great Dane.
As stated,
He lost his great name. He's just a Dane.
Right, just a Dane. As stated, next week we'll have the Battle of Westport, which is included in these 3 battles we just covered.
That's an A battle, too.
But obviously we'll go in a little bit more in depth of what took place there. It's a pretty decent sized one there, so might be by itself. But if it's not, then we'll have the Battle of Mares de Cygnes in Kansas, which is all related to these Mine Creek. We might even have Westport, Mine Creek, and we'll get rid of the Price, Missouri, and the Marmaton River too. So probably going to do all the rest of Price's expedition here. And then we got Newtonia coming up in a couple of weeks. Let's get out of here, Price.
All right, holy shit.
And then after that, we'll go back to Alabama for the Battle of Decatur. We'll go back to Virginia for Boynton Plank Road and Fair Oaks and Darbytown Road. And then it's just
Another A battle.
we got the Battle of Franklin. Is probably the biggest battle left. Nashville too.
Nashville.
And then that's it until we get to
A couple A battles in 65. Bentonville. Fredman.
all I see is blue. But yeah, Price is done essentially. Bye bye Missouri. No hopes for them for the Confederates doing anything there anymore. And that's it. You're seeing the Confederates be very, very. What's the word I'm looking for? Very, very desperate. Coming up, they're going to do anything to win this war, and they're not going to win this war because everybody pretty much knows it's done already. So.
Done, son.
So with that, go check out our YouTube at Bang Dang Network. If you're listening on Spotify, Apple, if you're listening on YouTube, go check out our Spotify, Apple. Give us a review, share it with your fans, answer that Spotify question, and we'll see you next week for the more Price's expedition, Price's whatever you want to, Price's failure.
Price.
So
Right.
yeah, we'll see you next week on Battles of the American Civil War. Battle of the Michigan.
Bang dang.